I'm back. Well, what have we got today? Well, here it is. It's nothing that's new. Well, this one's new, but we're going to take a look at this THR30 Mark II back in black. Yeah, really close up, and see all the things that you didn't know about it. This is one of them devices that's been around literally 4 years. I think it looks great, don't you? Yeah, especially when it's black. It's been around, believe it or not, since about 2011 in its original format. And it was one of those first pieces of gear that came out where you could actually say, hey, that's good. Okay, well, we're going to get closer and take a really good look at this THR30 Mark II. And this is the wireless version, which costs you a little bit more money. But more about that later, because there are some problems sitting around right now, here in August 2022. When you buy one of these and you want to run the wireless, it's got its issues. Let's put it that way. Well, the thing about this, it has been around a long time. A bit like me, really. Yeah, I've been around a while. Look, thank God it doesn't look like me. In any case, believe it or not, I never did buy one of these. I never did review it. I never did anything with it at all, except look at it across the floor in the guitar shops and think, I wonder if it's any good. And maybe you are the same. Maybe not. Maybe you've been using one of these for years. Well, if you have, put your view down in the text below because the more people that say it's good or the more people that say it's bad, you can sort of make your own mind up about what it's really like. Yeah, it's pretty cool, this is. Well, I always used to use a different device, but more about that later. I'll even show it to you because that in itself is still available today. And it's got different features than this one, and it's worth having a look at. So what I'm going to do with this, as we always do, I'm going to take a look at this inside. I'm going to show you the quality inside, maybe even one or two of the chips, because nobody's ever done it. They don't bother to show anybody anything, do they? And I think it matters. You're buying this gear, and let's face it, this isn't hyper cheap, not for what it is, I don't think. And you can so easily buy something that's not so great. Now I don't think that'll be the case with Yamaha gear because, well, I happen to like Yamaha gear. Reminds me a bit of Roland Boss, sort of. So let's go a bit closer. Let me get it apart and see what's kicking inside this beast. Okay, well, here we are. I have the front off and I've got the back. So I think what we'll do is we'll zoom down and take a look at the speaker section first, because the speakers are half of what matters in this thing. It's not a huge unit, but it's got other stuff inside the speakers which I might or might not investigate, just depends. We'll go and take a look now. Well, here we are looking at the sort of speaker section of the unit. You can see in the top, up here, this is where the speakers come in, and I dare say that this bit here is probably related to the battery, which is probably inside this unit somewhere. Anyway, we'll come back to that. You can see these are the speakers. There's just two of them, and we've got the sort of bit that feeds out from the back of the speakers to sort of increase the bass and the rest of it. Well, let's take a look at them speakers. What size are they? Okay, you can see yourself. They're about 3.5 inches, or approximately 9 centimeters across, give or take. And yeah, very interesting. You can get a pretty loud sound out of this thing, which is really a bit weird, bearing in mind how small the speakers are. So that's all pretty good. So here's a quick look inside the speaker area. Not easy to see, but chunky. It's a chunky sort of speaker, that is. You've got this back baffle thing floating around. I can't see anything relating to the battery in this section, so I'm going to put that back. Okay, so we've flipped it round now to get at the other speaker, so we can have a look at the back of that one. And sure enough, it's pretty much the same as the other one. But more importantly than the speaker, we really came down here to have a look at this, didn't we? I'll just put this down where I can rest it, that's it. Now then, as you can probably guess, there is no general information kicking around about the size of this battery and all the rest of it. But they do say that this thing can work between 2 and 3 hours off that battery. Whether that's a true situation or not, well, who knows? Only maybe Yamaha. But there it is. It is a pretty sizable battery. It's probably one of the sort of technologies kicking around out there these days, and there's a lot more of them coming along in battery technology. I can't wait for the solid state, that's what they call them, solid state batteries. That's a big thing coming along at the moment, particularly to do with EV cars and that sort of thing. Anyway, there's the battery. I'm going to rebuild this battery box back, and then we can have a good look at the rest of the product. And there's a quick shot of the battery box and the speaker box back together. So let's go and have a look at the guts of this thing. Now, it can be a bit painful to get this thing apart, but what I wanted to show you, for anybody who does want to take theirs apart, is that you don't have to take off any of these knobs or anything like that. And in particular, don't undo this input because it holds the wireless section in place. So none of that's applicable. The screws on the back have got to come out, and I'll talk about how I pulled it apart a bit later. Let's get and have a quick look at what's inside this darn thing. And there, my friends, for the very first time, I'm quite sure, you are seeing the THR30 Mark II wireless insides, the guts, so to speak. And even looking at it purely initially, just with a quick overview of what it is, it's really well made, and I expected it to be really well made, coming from a company like Yamaha. Yeah, if you go and have a look inside the products like the Helix of Line 6, because Yamaha own them these days, it's all very similar. Yeah, very high quality. There's a lot of surface mount stuff here. That there's no doubt. And you know, when you look at these connectors that are mounted to the board, well, they could be problematic at some stage. Well, maybe they could. I think the thing about devices like this, they don't really do too much to make the devices, shall we say, easily fixable. I wouldn't think you'd very easily fix that. You might screw this off, this DSP board, of which we can have a look a bit closer. Or you might screw off the wireless board on the end, which is this. I think this is this bottom one, I'm pretty sure it is. What's the top one do? Well, who knows? That's just other inputs or outputs. I think that's for augs in and that sort of stuff. Well, in fact, I know it is. So there it is on a little board. I like that because that's fixable. Let's bring it round a little bit so you can see maybe a bit more of that. You can see it there. As I said, you've got the wireless board, so if you've got problems with the wireless, you could, well, basically get another board. But it's when it comes back to some of this other stuff, when we're looking at this, it's a whole complex device, and can you get the diagram for it? Well, you might if you're an authorised Yamaha dealer, but, anyone else? Well, never mind, eh? What I like are the little LEDs down here that sort of light up the front and things like that. It's all clever stuff, and I love to see how the way they use the technology. You can see the board itself, it's perfect. The layout is good for this type of device. And that DSP board, well, it's about as nice looking as it could get. It's got a massive connector down the side here to keep this thing connected to the main board. Well, who knows what would happen if you got any problems with that. But overall, great quality. It's what you'd expect. You know, for the retail price of this thing, I don't think it's particularly hyper overpriced. I think it could be a little bit lower, but yeah, it's the way life is. Not sure what we've got up there. We'll have to have a look at that. Anyway, let's go a bit closer and just have a quick look at what we've got cooking here. Okay, I'm not going to spend too long looking at this board right this second. We'll talk about a couple of the chips a bit later. But this one's the ADSP, it's an Analog Devices BF707. It's 5344156.1-1.1 hash 2119, made in Korea. That's that on there. So it's another Analog Devices, like you've seen in nearly every one of these type of products, whether it be from Yamaha or almost anyone else except maybe Boss, who seem to make their own. You've also got, well, what you might expect is a WinBond memory chip right there. You can see it. More about these later. I'm just sort of pointing them out for now. And we've got these two boards here. As I said, this is the input-output one, and this one's the wireless board. Strangely enough, made by Line 6. Fancy that. Well, it would be, wouldn't it? Because it uses Line 6 product as wireless. That's another story. Anyway, whipping back, there's an overall view of the sort of thing that you get inside this animal. I'll call it that. And I think it's very well put together. We'll have a quick chat of the chips a bit later. But, you know, remember, when you're looking at these connections on the board, these are the bits where you're going to get trouble later on, if you get trouble. Maybe on the end of that board there, or on these floating around, you know, like this USB. Even this power end's pretty unusual. It's not an everyday connector. So you've got to bear that in mind. But overall, I'm quite impressed with this one. As to score, I would give it a 10 out of 10 all day. Oh, there you are. Well, in my mind, this is a bit of a fun device. Yeah, it's really well put together. There's no question to that. I like the sizable battery. Yeah, what can you say about that? And as for the chips, there's one or two pretty reasonable chips in there, without getting into greater depth. So we'll just cover a few of them now. There's not really that much to speak about, but we will cover them, just a small section. I like the DSP bit myself, but we'll see what we can find. Well, that's the end of the chip section. I'm going to put this thing back together. And by the way, anybody who wants to pull theirs apart, it can be a little bit misleading in so much as when you look at this Yamaha thing on the front. I don't know if you can see that or not. Maybe there'll be a picture or not. It's held in with two little spikes, and that has to come off. And if you was to twist it, you'll snap it off. So that has to be prised up very carefully, and underneath it is a screw. So when you've undone the four front screws and all the screws around the back, it sort of clamshells off, just as you can see there, into the two parts. And you've got the wires for the battery and for the speakers and that sort of thing that connect from one half to the other. But there it is. Don't go and cock it up, will you? If you want to pull yours apart, it's worth having a look, I guess, if you like that sort of thing. But I tend to show people inside because of the quality, what you're really buying. You know, you don't want to buy something that's junky inside and after 2 months when you're at a gig it's going to fail. Or even not if you're at a gig, if you was using this in a studio. I mean, you wouldn't want the thing to fail. You just get halfway through something and, oh my God, choose a window. That's what I'd do. Anyway, I'm going to put this back together and I'll see you in a moment. See, that's the thing, isn't it? I don't know why you just don't have bets that I'll never get it back together. What can I say? Here it is, back as it was, pretty much pristine. But if you do go pulling these apart, like I said, just be very careful, because this plastic on the end, it is plastic, and you can get a very slight indentation if you're not very careful, which I aren't always careful, but nothing wrong with this one. It all looks good, and it's all back together. I think we'll look at the back first, because there's nothing to it. It's half a second. Yeah, it's all simple. We've got the USB somewhere there. We've got the line outs, which are somewhere there. And we've got the power, which is somewhere there. And that's about it for the back. Not much to talk about, except that you can stream out of the USB on this one into a PC. So if you wanted to do any of that sort of stuff, you know, with the door, no, not the sort you open, a door, you know, then you can do that. It's all good. You've also got lots of stuff on the top here, so I'm not going to bore you with that, but you could take those line outs and feed them straight into the front of house desk and the rest of it, and yeah, never take a big amp with you again. That could work. And even if there's not much power, you're going to be playing for a couple of hours with this one. Use it as a sort of stage speaker coming up to you. That's a good idea. And maybe run that front of house feed, and then everybody will hear what you do. This great, well, I wouldn't say it's great, it's good quality coming out of these speakers and out of this device. So let's have a look on the top. Well, there's a sort of quick overview. It's got quite a bit on it, this one has, and it's got more on it than the earlier devices, I believe, although I'd never seen the earlier devices in real life, you know, played myself. So we'll have a quick run through this, because it's quite a good unit if you want to do a lot of practicing and that sort of thing. You can even feed in an AUX, whatever, with your backing tracks and practice to that. And don't forget you can use the phones and the rest, but we'll come to that. So let's zoom in a bit closer and run across the front. See what we really get for our money. Okay, well, we got in a bit closer here to take a look at what's going on around this area, all the way up to where the handle is, and then we'll move across a bit further just to have a look at what's going on. Well, right from the off, first thing I like to see is an on and off button, and you would not believe how many of this type of device simply don't have an on and off button. I know it sounds ridiculous, but honestly, that's the way they are. It's all, well, it's all madness, really. You want to be able to turn the darn thing on and off without having to unplug it, don't you? Well, at least I do. I don't know. I think it makes sense myself. Especially at the price of the electricity and the rest of it these days, it's getting a bit, well, manic. Yeah, I know where I could ask them to put the electricity, but I don't think it'd fit. There you go. Look at this second item here. This is actually like a little LED display, and it shows the various conditions and settings, and it's even got a tuner in there, believe it or not. Quite interesting. In fact, there's a tap button, the next thing along, and you can see it says tap it for the timing or hold it down, and you get a little tuner in this window. Useful if you haven't got a tuner at hand anywhere else, which I like, really. It's all good. By the way, this tuner's 440 hertz, or A4. Yeah, can't say more about it than that. And also this tap time. When you've got on it, let's imagine you're on a delay and that sort of thing. You can set the delay by tapping away at this, just as you can with everything else in life. They all do it, don't they? Now, there is another feature relating onto this thing, and it's called an extended stereo setting. If you hold the switch down for more than 3 seconds, it switches the extended stereo function on or off. Be aware it only produces a wider field from the AUX jack, the USB jack, and Bluetooth, as well as the reverb effect itself. The extended stereo, by the way, the setting, is stored however you've left it when you turn it off. You've got an amp knob here. It says on, look. How complex is that? And these are the different sort of amps that are sort of inside the unit. Now they can be changed around and all that sort of stuff, and you can store them up here in these memories. These are user memories, easy to get at. I think I stored number 5 up to now, and the rest are, well, basically defaults. So it's all good stuff. And you just twiddle it around and you'll see the light change and so on and so forth. And by the way, when you turn it back on, it goes back to the one you left it at when you turned it off, if you get that. Now, one important feature when you're looking at amps and things like that, especially in this device, if you look here, you've got a sort of gain and a master. Those work very much like a real amp. So, you know, you get the sort of the effect of cranking up the gain and the master. It adjusts that tone that's pertinent to each one of these amplifiers that you've got here, just like a real amp, like I said. I think that's an interesting feature. Some of them just don't really do that sort of thing. They sort of, well, if it doesn't sound good, they just make it not sound good louder. This one's a little bit different. Now in the middle here, this is applicable really only to the wireless version of this, which is the one we're reviewing, so I'm not really worried. But what it really does, it selects the amp mode. This is for the modelling by combination of amp mode and amp type. The amp knob here basically chooses the amp mode, as we've said. But this here, this affects the modelling classic, boutique, and modern. Yeah, so lots to go at. We've covered these things across the top here, these user memories, all very simple. You can store it, you know, your setting. Bump, it's in there. Bump, it's in there. Bump, it's in there. And so on and so forth. And we've got this Bluetooth button you press when you want to pair whatever it is you're going to look at the amp with. For its software, it's got a little app. It's not the best app in the world, but it suffices and it works. And, you know, the thing is with this amp, you can set a lot of stuff up just simply with the knobs if you're stuck out at somewhere. That's the thing. Moving along a little bit, you've got what we've already covered, the gain and master. We've got a bass, middle and treble. It's pretty obvious and par for the course for any amp, almost anyway, from what I see. Let's move along a bit further where it gets a bit more exciting. Okay, moving along further, we've got this effect knob and then an echo and reverb knob. Well, the effect knob, that can control a pile of stuff, really. Chorus, flanger, phaser, or tremolo, and they're covered around the edge if you look. You can sort of turn it around and get to the different settings. And that's pretty much the same with the echo and the reverb. It can select one of 4 different effects again. It's an echo reverb, it's a spring reverb, or a hall. So you've got a pretty good combination of effects that you can apply to anything you're doing and store them and all the rest of it. Moving along a bit further, we've got this output knob, and it says guitar. That's so that you can balance. If you're using the aux in, which is a little bit further across, you can balance the audio in to the guitar out, and that gives you this nice balance, so you can do a fair bit of practicing and that sort of stuff. I think that's all pretty good. And as you might imagine, lastly, we've got this input, says it's wireless ready. We've got the phones connector and the aux. I don't really like these too much when they're in these little tiny sort of jack connections. I think they're a cheap excuse, to be honest. They want to be this size, just so that what everybody else in the world uses, you know. Or maybe not for the aux, but certainly for the phones. I mean, unless you're a cheapskate and you've got them junky sort of little earpiece things as opposed to the proper stuff, well, that's a pain in the neck. Just want to cover one more thing quickly. It's round the back, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's all to do with this power. This is not your average power. Well, I'm afraid it isn't, and it's some obscure connector. Yeah, it's not like many of the others that I've seen. So you're going to be using this power supply down on the floor. And if you lose it, well, tough. You'll be buying a new one, probably. It's 15 volts. It says here, it's 15 volts DC. And I can tell you now, they're not really that common, are they? It's one of these brick type things. And it says here very clearly that it's DC 15 volts at 3 amps, 45 watts and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's got all the current stuff on it, so it's all good. And it's the same on the back of this device as well. I'm not going to bore you with all that stuff today, except to say when you buy something from Yamaha, it's completely legal. And yeah, it's got all the approvals wherever you are, like Line 6 and like Boss and all those type of companies. You can depend on it being pretty solid and safe. I think that matters. There's another thing I want to just mention. When we're looking at these memories down here, the thing is with these memories, you've got all pile of stuff inside the unit by way of sounds, you know, pre-stored stuff. But of course, as you store things in there and you mess around, as I do, and you will, I can assure you will be playing around quite a lot with this one. Well, what happens, it's all very simple. You cock up the presets. It can be like that. Of course, you can put the app on and back everything up and restore it and things like that. There is another answer if you want to get back to be having a clean start, you know, new girlfriend type of thing. Yeah, you can do it. And what you do, it says here, is you press 1, 3 and 5 buttons and you turn the power on. So if you get the 1, 3 and 5 from down there, turn your power on, new girlfriend time. I do want to harp on while we're here about, where is it? This thing down here, this wireless connection, this wireless in. It's a great idea if you've got a Line 6 G10T, which is the bit that will go in your guitar. You can plug it in there, and while this is plugged in, it'll charge that up, which I think it's a really good idea, bearing in mind it's sort of included in this one. What a brilliant idea that is. It's only one problem. Here we are, August 2022. I can't buy a GT10T or version 2 of that unit anywhere. They're not anywhere. I can't find a single dealer with that product telling me that there's anything shorter than a sort of 14 to 17 week wait for the device. And that says a lot about a lot, really. We'll sum that up a little bit later, I guess. When you've got a company like Yamaha and Line 6 and people like that can't actually make products and get them to market because of all the problems, oh my God, that's another story. And I've partly covered this in a different video, which I'll put down there in the text if you want to go and have a watch of that and see my opinion regarding why, you know, the music business and a lot of other technology businesses are in the state they're in currently. It's worth going and watching, and if you don't come from this sort of stuff, well, you'll probably learn quite a bit. Yeah, so let's move on this one for now anyway. I just wanted to get that across to you. And just before we do leave the G10T subject, Mr. Yamaha and Mr. Line 6, I hope you're hearing this. I hope you come and watch it. Yeah, what you want to do is you want to offer 15% discount to anybody that's bought one of these and can't actually buy the darn wireless connector. Yeah, wakey, anybody there? Yeah. Well, there's more again with this device. We've got this button down here for the Bluetooth, somewhere down there for the Bluetooth. Remember, I can't see it from here. Anyway, it's down there, and you can pair this amplifier, call it that. You can connect it to what they call a smart device. No, not me. I'm not smart. But if you've got a smart device, you can stream the audio to a smart device, and it tells you all in the manual how you can do that. I'm not going to bore you with it here because there's no real point. But it can be done. Talking a little bit more about the battery that's inside here. If you noticed when we were taking a look, I couldn't get really much information about that battery. And I'm not surprised, it's just what it is. But what it does say in the manual, in one place, it says that, if you don't use this much, do charge the battery up at least once every 6 months. Well, it doesn't say what the result of not charging it would be other than a flat battery, but maybe it could affect the battery in some way. Sometimes some batteries can have problems. Whether this one does is another story. If you've had one of these for a while and you didn't charge your battery up for a year, you threw this in the cupboard, so I can't take any more of that. And then you pull it out a year later, let me know in the text, or let everybody know in the text down below, whether you have ever had any battery problems with a THR30, well, Mark 1 or Mark 2, I guess. Yeah, and wireless or not. It's all interesting stuff, and everybody will learn the truth about the device. I'd love to really have done the demonstration with the G10T wireless connector, but unfortunately I know it's a wireless device, but I'm never going to be able to demo it thanks to, well, the problems that are out there today. So if you really want the wireless device, make sure you find one of these and the device at the same time, because if you don't, you're relegated to cable. So there. Now, I did talk about it earlier, but you can actually, out of this USB, the one I can see and you can't, you do actually get a Cubase supplied with the unit, or at least you can download it, or you can this, or you can that. If I remember right, it's included. I don't use Cubase any longer. I gave up on that a while back. But the fact is, it does come with it, and you can stream out of this into Cubase, so you could multi-track and all that sort of thing, which I think is a great thing. If you haven't really got much else, yeah, it'll work, and it's included and all that sort of good stuff, really. I'm not going to connect this today to a PC or a Mac in any way relating to Cubase and DAW software. I'm not going to bother with any of that. It's all there in the manual, and there's plenty of information online if you want to do that. But I will be connecting it to that Apple sitting over there, an Apple iPad. Now, when it comes down to that app, that little app that you can get for Windows or you can get it for Mac OS, yeah, it's a pretty basic piece of software if you want the truth. But sometimes basic's better. Just trust me on this. What you don't want to be is a programmer or a rocket scientist just to play a guitar. You don't. So you can go and spend your £2,000 plus on a fractal audio, whatever it is this week, and be one of them if you want. But what I'd recommend, rather than doing all that stuff, I'd recommend you just buy something nice and simple. Unless you're gigging theatres or amphitheatres or you're in your bedroom. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. I used to do that for a very long time. Or you're in a little studio. Well, that's also fine. Yeah, you can do a lot with this in your bedroom and in your little studio. And this is a bigger studio, I suppose, now. But yeah, I'll be using this direct into the desk later when I do the playing, which will be coming up towards the end of the video. You'll be able to hear it yourself, and I won't enhance it in any way except for what's inside the unit, and that's a good thing. So the application I'm going to load up, and then we're going to take a quick look at what's available in it. It's not rocket science, as I said. It's time I had a cappuccino. You might as well go get one too. But do come back, won't you? And don't forget, while you're watching all this stuff, you need to subscribe. You need to boost my channel a little bit. Subscribe, do that thumbs up thing, and, notifications, all that works as well. Now, I don't do millions of videos, so you won't be notified every hour. It's probably once a week, or maybe even once every couple of weeks that I do reviews, but they're all like this generally for the products that have got the electronics and the rest inside, whether they're tube amps or anything else. I always like to show people what nobody else bothers to do. Yeah, all the rest are just selling it to you. I mean, I'm not selling anything. I bought this with my own money, by the way, which I think is a very important aspect. Now, I don't buy every last item that I've ever reviewed myself. Sometimes some people do actually send some bits over and say, here, do you want to review that? And I'll say, yeah. Well, why? Well, why not, is the thing. it costs me a lot of money to make a video. I have to buy the equipment every time. And it mounts up to, well, if you were in this studio, you wouldn't believe how much gear there is. Honestly, it's just so much gear. And what's scary about this, probably like you guys, when you've bought something, you don't want to sell it. Your guitars gradually do this, don't they? Yeah, they end up being like overpowering. You want to go to bed, but you don't get in bed in case it crumples the guitar underneath it. Anyway, enough of that for now. Let's go and take a look at this application. Okay, well here we are. There's the application on the iPad, all set up and basically connected. And you can see this important area around here where, well, you can see what's going on basically. So if I was to take that knob there and turn it, if you watch over here, yeah, it moves things around. You can see that going on. Okay, so that's all good. So we can see that it's working, so to speak. You can see that it sort of simulates what's in the amp or on the amp, and by changing something up here, we can change things in the amp, and if we change things on the amp, we get the same thing going on with the application, which is what you'd expect. It's very simple to load this up, and I'm not going to go into hyper depths of how you set it up and all the rest of it. I'm not even screen capturing this. I just want to show you, basics of it, really. So if I was to go over here to the compressor, I can turn that compressor on with a bit of luck. There it is. You don't see any difference on the physical amp, but you can see it on the screen. I could turn a gate on and that sort of thing. Now, you've got a lot of other things across here. You've got modern at the top and boutique and classic. If I wanted to look at the cabinet that's involved in this clean down here, well, it's as simple as that. And you can come in here. They all look a bit basic to me by design of the software, but like I said before, well, sometimes that's a better thing. In any case, looking at the speaker, it says it's currently an American 1x12. You can see that. See, you can't see anything on the amp. That's the thing. You've got to come into this to get these sort of things organised. There's nothing down there. So if we were looking at the American 1x12, you look carefully there, you can just about see a surround on it. So if I was to flip across to the Californian 12, well, that's it. I'm now on the Californian 12. Pity there's no method of being able to see anything on the amp itself, which is what you're seeing down there. If I was to come down and across a bit more, you see what you see, and that's it. Of course, as I said before, if I move across to a different amp, we move across to a different amp. That's all fine. Well, once you've got the sounds as you want them by controlling with this, of course, you can come back in here and store them in these presets, and you literally just get it exactly as you want it. You can store it in there, but you can press the button. You can see this one at the moment's on number 5. And off and on you go. Very simple to use. That's what I like about it, really. There's nothing particularly dynamically scary. But do bear in mind, if I turn this gain up here, you can see it's gone up. But nothing changes on the amp. That's the gain knob right there. It didn't move, and it won't move because it's not designed to. You can whip across to these other types of device. You can see them changing colour depending on which one you choose. So if you're on the modern, it's green. You can see that. If we flip across to the boutique, it's blue, so you know you're on blue. And if we go across to the classic, it's red. So you can see at any time exactly which is which. So of course, you've got to remember them. That's just live. But I like a lot of things about this. The thing is, it really is easy to use. And you can't overvalue that. You really can't. Now you've got some other things going on up the corner here. You can see there's a little guitar, and if we just hit that, we can load factory presets, save current presets, load presets, backup THR, restore THR, save the current preset, save this, do that, and so on and so forth. All very simple and all very interesting stuff. If I wanted to load a different one of these down here, I can just click that and say, well, I can say, oops, I missed it. And now I've loaded this other preset. You saw it happen. And the amp changes accordingly. You can see this changed, you get the idea. We've pre-configured the amp, or reconfigured the amp again. It's now on user memory 3. Back to user memory 5. Simple as that. Okay, so when it comes down to the sort of amp modelling, what we've got is they're all down here: clean, crunch, lead, high gain, special, and then these 3: bass, acoustic and flat. But it's those first 5 or 6 that I'm interested in. Then we've got this sort of modern, boutique and classic. And those are the 3 types, or modes. Those are really the amp types, or models. And then if we flip to modern, you've got the same again, or classical, whatever, which one you want. I'm sure that somewhere out there in YouTube land or Yamaha land, they'll run through each individual model. I know in the manual you've got a list of them, but it doesn't really go into any hyper depth. The point is, if it sounds right for you, whatever mode you're in, that's what matters. You can easily do a load of stuff with this, and that's the important thing, isn't it? Now, as well as the THR emote, we've got a THR session there. And what that's about, that allows you to sort of mess around and play around a little bit. You can go and load up your music and so on and so forth. Plug your guitar in, adjust 1 or 2 different things in here, and, well, it's basically a practice machine, I guess. Yeah, I'm not going to spend time on that either, but it is there. It is included if you want to download it. There's not much more I can say. Well, I wouldn't call the software enthralling, would you? But nevertheless, it's got its place, and that's the important thing. So a bit of information about the particular models within this. You know, people always think that, oh, I've got to know that it's a copy of this or it's a copy of that. Well, you don't really have to do that, do you? I mean, most people have an idea what high gain is to them, and what lead is, or crunch is to them, or even special, that could be anything you want it to be, or what clean is, and all the rest of it. So when we're looking at an application as simple as that one is over there, well, there's nothing wrong in that. Don't assume that, oh, it's all inferior and it's, well, not very good. I'll use that word. YouTube will be watching. So I've got a bit of a printout here, because I don't know any more about the particular models in here than you do. But I'm just going to talk a couple of seconds about the models, and then we'll get on with finishing off this particular section. Yeah, so in the classic mode, for clean, you've got a low gain preamp for sparkling American style cleans with 6 L6 tubes in output stage for brightness and strong mid-range, it says here. Well, you couldn't get that wrong, could you? Of course you couldn't. Then for crunch, we've got EL84 power tubes in a true Class A configuration. You go figure. Next, lead, a low gain preamp with an EL34 based power section that goes into classic British overdrive. Does it all sound familiar, doesn't it? Yeah, somehow, doesn't it? Then we've got high gain, powerful modern distortion that fills out as the high gain preamp is pushed. Tread carefully after 12 o'clock. Tread? That reminds me of tread plate somehow. Well, there you go. Your tread plate and my tread plate will be different. Special is a 12AX7 and 6LX tubes in pursuit of the brown sound. Go figure. Bass. It says here, woody vintage tone with late breakup. Acoustic, designed for acoustic electric guitar, and flat, a neutral tone with no amp or speaker modelling. Great for connecting other instruments to your THR. So, yeah, you could connect a few things or not. Yeah, or not. Moving on to the boutique section rather than the classic. It says, you know, these are their comments, not mine. Clean a low watt EL34, tuning up the preamp gain will thicken up the cleans and push into bluesy overdrive. It all sounds good, you see. I'll just choose a few. Lead on Boutique as a version of the classic lead circuit, modified for extra gain and darker tone and scoop mids. Is that a JCM 800? I don't know. High gain ECC 83s into 6L6s for high gain with a highly responsive EQ, inspired by German engineering. That could be a number of them. That could be a Bogner, or it could be a diesel like over there, or you name it. And moving on to modern, I'm skipping a few here. We'll be here all day, won't we? Clean a Boutique low watt EL84 design that adds fullness and sustain as the master volume is cranked up. A great match for neck pickups. What can I say? Crunch a mid-volume Boutique design with 6550 power tubes. Listen for tight bass response and a singing sustain. Doesn't tell you what it is, but well, you'll hear it. Lead a high gain design with 12 AX7s into an EL34 for the tone that defined the 1980s. Oh, that's the JCM 800 then, isn't it? I'm sure it did. High gain, a boosted version of the classic special amp, and even more gain for aggressive rhythms or searing leads. Yeah, it's good if you're doing bacon, you know. Searing, no. Special, I can't do it. Special, a classic overdrive circuit before the preamp tightens down low frequency response and provides even more gain, ideal for extended range guitars. 7 stringers. And on it goes, so you've got an idea of what you're getting inside this thing for the money you pay. And this one was approximately, I think, £470 in the UK. Whatever it is elsewhere, who knows? I think the price has been jacked up a bit, like most things at the moment. And I've also got here, just to finish off, before we get down to the summing up and the price and the warranty and the rest, and then we'll be able to hear it, won't we? Yeah, it's talking about different technical specs, and I just wanted to, well, try and see if there's anything in here I didn't cover. Yeah, A to D converters, 24-bit plus 3-bit floating, it said. D to A converter, 24-bit. Sampling frequency, 48 kilohertz. Memory allocations, 5, well, we know that. Guitar in's minus 10 dBu and aux in is also minus 10, so it's a non-commercial type of thing. The phone's output's 10 milliwatts if you wanted to know what that is. And the rated output of this amp, and this is an important section by the way, I'm just going to talk about this. The THR30 II wireless is 30 watts, which is 15 watts plus 15 watts. And the THR10 II, which we don't have here, but that's 10 and 10 watts. But what they don't tell you, well, they might, in a minute. Oh yeah, they do tell you. The THR30 II wireless, this thing, isn't 15 watts and 15 watts as soon as you disconnect the mains. It's 7.5 watts and 7.5 watts. Now that's an awfully different set of figures, isn't it? Half the output volume when you're running off battery. So what they did, clearly, to conserve battery, or rather not to put in a bigger battery, I think that's more the case, is to reduce the output power. What a pity. Well, 7.5 watts is nothing to be sniffed at. It gets quite loud. But remember that then, that's an important aspect, that it'll be twice as loud, or twice the output, if you plug it in the mains. You don't hear that talked about much, do you? Especially on the other demos where they try and sell it to you. On the Bluetooth, by the way, it says here it's Bluetooth version 4.2. It's not only version 5.1s plus that will do the range. This is the old-fashioned Bluetooth. So, what's the warranty? Well, it's a good question. I don't really know what the warranty is. My guess is it's 1 year. Yeah, there's a lot of the 1 years floating around these days. I don't know why, but I haven't seen any information anywhere, absolutely anywhere, to talk about warranty being anything other than 1 year. So I think it's 1 year. It's not even talked about anywhere when you get your little bits of paper, or there's nothing. Doesn't talk about anything. So treat it as 1 year, and if it's any more, well, aren't you lucky? But I doubt it. And as for the price, this particular one, the THR30 II wireless version, that's what it is, and it's a new release in the respect that this one's black. In case I didn't mention that before, let's just get that cleared up. In all other respects, other than it being black, it's the same as the one that was there before. I like the blacks. I think they look great. It's going at 470 quid or pounds, which knocks it to about $500 or maybe $520 if you live in America land, for example, maybe somewhere else where they use the dollars, the American dollars, that is. So it's not that cheap a device, and it's very frustrating that I can buy the device, but I can't buy, the wireless, like I said earlier. Yeah, very frustrating. So is it cheap? No, it's not cheap. Anyway, back to things. What do I like? I like a lot of things about this. I like the fact that it's black. That's the first thing. If you want the truth, it just looks more classic. It looks really nice, and it's made well as well. Although the sides are plastic, they are. The amp itself is really well made. I like to see that. I really do. And inside, I think the overall quality is first class. Yeah, the insides are like a 10 out of 10. There's no doubt about that. It's as good as you get. But I expected to see that from Yamaha. I really did. I'll go back a long way with Yamaha. I had recording desks back in the 80s from Yamaha, believe it or not. All sorts of things like that. Anyway, let's back to this. I like the wireless idea. I really do like the wireless idea. I wish I could demonstrate it for you. I just don't have the other bit. I love how it can charge in here when you leave it plugged in, and this is in on the main. That's a fantastic idea. I like the simplicity of this device. You get fed up of, to be honest, looking at all these other devices. I've got piles of them in this place. There's a whole raft of them down there. Oh my God, so many of them. And some of them can be relatively complex, and some of them can be ridiculously complex. It's one of the reasons when I looked at the likes of the UA Dream pedal, it only did 1 amp, really. And it was simplicity. It was easy to use, and it sounded absolutely just the same, or nearly as the same, that matters for me, at least for me, as the 1965 reverb amp, from Fender. So that was a great device. Yet you can take some of these others and they can be so complex that you can spend forever faffing around with them. People will disagree with me. I don't really care. It's my opinion. And I remember looking at a Fractal Audio FX3, and I can imagine spending 3 months learning every facet of that. I wouldn't waste my time. Bought one, sold it, never go back. It's got lots of uses. Just hold on and let me show you. Back in the day, I had one of these things. Anybody seen this? You seen one of these? This is a Boss E-band JS10. They're still for sale today, and they're about £350. These things are. They've got one speaker underneath, and anyway, it's a long story. Let's just put it there for now, because you can still see it there. The thing about that device is, it did a lot of stuff that this device doesn't. I haven't used that in a while, to be fair, because it's getting on a bit now. It doesn't have the sort of tones that the likes of this device has. And that's one of the reasons for buying something like this, so you're getting better tones. But that can do a lot of things like slow down the tracks you're trying to learn and all sorts of things that can do. So it's got its place, but I moved away from it from some while ago into this type of technology. Whether it be the Boss GT1000 core down there, whether it be a GX100, whether it be any of the other ones that I've been through to date, and there's been a lot of them. So This one has now been relegated. That's gone. And this is Mark II, I guess. But I wouldn't want to be trying to do with this what I did with that. So the pluses of this remain the tone, the sounds, that sort of thing. The fact that you can line out, the fact that you can stream, you can do some of that stuff on that, but it's not quite the same as this thing. So I like all them things. I like the Bluetooth as well on this, how easy it is to connect up to the, well, whatever you want to connect up that's Bluetooth. You can do it to your phone or anything else. That's simple, really. I like the volume of this, especially when it's plugged in to the mains at the back here. You're getting effectively 30 watts out of two tiny little speakers, and you've seen the speakers yourself. Quite amazing that is, and the wide stereo is good as well. If you kick that into effect, I like all these things. The simplicity of these effects, the fact that you've got 5 you can store in 2 seconds, thousands of different things. Well, what don't I like? It's got to be something. Yeah, the things I don't like, I've been mentioning them as we went, off and on. I don't like the fact that I can't buy the wireless, but I'm charged a premium price for a device that's got no wireless. No matter how temporary it is, it's months on end as I currently speak to buy a G10T Mark II or Mark I from anywhere, and the price on the Mark I was 120 quid. And I think the price on the Mark II came down to like 89 or something like that. But you can't get either of them, so it doesn't really matter. At any price, yeah, you're not going to be using the wireless on this anytime soon. It might change in the future, I suspect it will. Very frustrating, in fact, paying a premium and not being able to use the device. So Yamaha, if you want to send me one free, I'll review it for you. There's no other way I'm going to get one. That's it. I'm not overly hyper impressed with some of the manual either. You've got to remember, if you want to look at everything you can on a device like this, which most people would, I guess, well, a lot of it's simple. You still need the meat and two veg to be able to create a proper review. So I struggled a little bit with some of that. Like these amp modelling lists. Pretty not very good. Like those amp modelling lists, they're not very dynamic, and to be honest, they ought to fix that. So guys have got more of a clue of what they're buying, or what they think they're buying, let's put it that way. Was there anything else I didn't like? Well, not really. I like most of this. I think it's pretty good. Yeah. I'd like the battery to have been bigger, so I got 15 watts plus 15 watts as opposed to 7.5 and 7.5 when it's on battery. You could have done something about that, couldn't you? But you didn't. And yeah, the battery can be important to some people. And if you've got a bigger battery, of course, you've got a longer time of playing before the battery goes belly up. Whether you reduce it to 7.5 watts output or you don't. Yeah, bit of a disappointment that was. Okay then, come on Tony, what's the score? Well, what's the score? I actually did like this device. I did think it's got a lot going for it. Well, it must have, because it's been around, believe it or not, since 2011 in one form or another. And you know what? I bet it hasn't really changed much. Well, it's gained the wireless. There's probably a few little bits and pieces different. But I could imagine that overall, since 2011, not much has changed. It reminds me so much of a Kemper. Kemper's been going since 2011. I bought one in February 2012. All them years back, that's 10 years. And it's still going strong, I might add, but I think they're due for a redesign somewhat. And it makes you wonder about this. They've changed the colours and things, but nothing else has changed really. And, you know, them processors have changed. The DSPs have changed quite dramatically from quite the olden days of 2011. I just wonder whether the processors have been brought along and updated as they've gone, or are we actually using 2011 processors? That's something to consider. Yeah, would I go and buy a Kemper today? Well, not at a 10 or 11 year old product. No, I wouldn't. And because this is substantially cheaper, well, I did buy it and I wanted to review it anyway. But it is an off-putting point. You just consider that, won't you? Yeah, 10-year-old. However, even taking all that into account, bearing in mind the longevity of the product, I think I'll give the Kemper a 10 when I reviewed that. And I'm going to give this one a 9. Well, why not a 10? Well, because I can't get a damn wireless for it. And if you might say, well, that shouldn't affect the product, Tony, you shouldn't score it because you can't get this or you can't that. Well, of course I should. They've made a device and I can't get the bits. It's got to be negative in some ways, and that is why it's 9 out of 10. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this one, because I think I've never seen inside one of these presented by anybody, anywhere. I've never seen it. I have to admit I haven't particularly gone looking for it, but of all the videos when I did my research, I never found a single guy that was talking about anything really, other than look at me playing. Well, I'm going to do some playing, sure, but the focus of it isn't purely just this is what it sounds like, because it'll sound, sound's a subjective thing. It'll sound different to different people. For me, it sounds okay. I'm quite happy with that. But I do think that every product deserves to show you whether it's good or bad inside. And on a lot of this stuff, the manufacturers don't often want you to see. But I think it's essential. And so that's why we covered that. And I'm happy with this one. Yeah, it's quite good. Yeah, quite good. So the plane's going to be coming up any second. Literally any second. So don't forget to do that there. Subscribe, do the thumbs up, and choose all for the notifications, because if you don't, you won't get any notifications. I don't do that many of them, but you do want to know when a video comes along. If you like this sort of thing, it's definitely worth subscribing. You won't find this sort of way of a review really anywhere else, because nobody does it. It's all down to Tony, I'm afraid. So if you're happy with that, do that stuff, because it does give the channel a bit of a boost, and it costs a lot of money to do it all. I get fed up of it sometimes as well. You might say, well, you don't, do you? Well, yeah, you can, because it becomes a burden in having to produce videos. It sits on your shoulders, and sometimes you might not feel like doing it, In any case, I've done this one. I like this one. And don't forget to visit www.tonymackenzie.com, where there's a lot of reviews on there. They're getting on a bit, some of them reviews now, but I've done mostly reviews ever since on YouTube, since I stopped doing the website, really. But there's still a lot of stuff to be gleaned from there. And anybody who's never been there, I'll have a field day with that place. There's a load of so much stuff on there. And that's it for now then. And put down in the comments what you think about these if you've already owned one. Put down in the comments all the things that you've had trouble with, or things that you've not had trouble with. Put your opinion down. That's what matters. It's not just my opinion, it's everybody's opinion. And particularly users, people who've owned them or have still got them, or think they're fantastic, or think they're not very good, or it all helps many people. And I think that's one of the key things about these type of reviews, that you should really try and help other guys in every way you can. Here's the plane, and I don't know what I'll play on here. I might even just do simple stuff or not, I don't know. Whatever comes out is whatever comes out, and it will have been recorded direct into the desk through these two line outs. I'll flip it to the wide stereo, whatever it is, if I can do that on there. I think I can. But in any case, you'll be hearing this exactly how it is, and I might even switch it back to factory and tweak them a little bit and stuff like that, or not. Yeah, it is what it is. You hear what you hear. That's it. So until next time, get out of here.